Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Welcome to the House of Cameron, the latest entry into the Houselights series here on the Nerd Party Network. This week, we're continuing with the works of James Cameron with his 1989 film, The Abyss. I'm joined again by my friends Tristan Jammer Riddell and John Catfish Mills. Gentlemen, are you ready for this deep dive?
Yeah, I mean, after I saw those angels, I really just want to talk about it.
Well, you don't have to stay in a coma for 90% of this podcast, Tristan. It's okay to, give your opinions as we go. And you have that hard right hook. John, I'm not so sure about that. I think you could have been a contender. That's what I hear. But oh man, I think what you had just said before we started recording, Tristan, this is the reason that I wanted to talk about James Cameron, as specifically this movie. It is my favorite film. It did inspire me to study filmmaking, and it has many great aspects to it, and it's going to be a lot of fun to talk about for sure. So like we do here in Houselight, we're looking at the films, not just, for the body of work of a director, but looking at the different aspects that reflect on that director, things that were groundbreaking at the time. And this is basically his third large film. I mean, man, Terminator, Aliens, and The Abyss, his 1, 2, 3 punch. I mean, any director would want something like those caliber for their first 3 films. Like, that's amazing. And again, I mean, what do they say in film school? Like, don't work with kids and don't shoot with water. Like, those are the two universal. And there's no kids here, but my goodness, it was this just an incredibly difficult shoot. One of the pieces on the special edition of The Abyss, which is what we'll be referring to, which was the extended cut that came out after the fact, a little bit longer than the theatrical, basically remakes the third act into something that's a little more plausible. But with that, it also had this awesome behind the scenes feature called Under Pressure, Making the Abyss, which again, there's a lot of stuff behind this film that we've been able to see over the decades since its release. But let's start with, like we said, first impressions on this Jammer. No, I'm just kidding. I'll use your real. Tristan, what was your first impression, your first time seeing this, and, just where did it slot in the DVD of your mind? Because there's no Blu-ray. Sorry to disappoint. It doesn't.
Well, this was actually in the VHS of my soul.
Ooh.
Yeah, this was
get the rewinder ready.
and be kind. I loved this film. My dad loves this film, and he's the one who showed it to me. I can't remember how he first saw it, but he saw it on sale. I can't remember where, but it was his eyes lit up like Christmas when he saw it on VHS. He's like, oh my god, and he just grabbed it. He's like, Tristan, we're watching this like as soon as we get home. And
so I'm assuming he saw it in theaters then, if he really if he called it out in his eye.
Yeah, he had to have seen it in theaters. And when we went home, we watched it immediately, and we got some Chinese on the way home. I remember this day, and we watched it, and I loved it. Like, I was just like, holy crap, that is such a good movie. I mean, just the pacing, the special effects, the acting, the writing. And I mean, I love James Cameron, but his dialogue has not always been top notch. But I really can't think of any kind of awkward exchanges in this movie when it comes to dialogue. And I still remember some time went by, and my uncle, who is the eternal bachelor, and he always has the cutting edge AV technology. And he calls up my dad and says, like, hey, I just got The Abyss on Laserdisc, and it has way more footage. You guys need to come over and watch this. Oh. And we're like, wait, what?
What? Is this Christmas and 4th of July combined?
And so we went over, and then we watched it in quarters because, flip. Change
Laserdisc
disc
was a
flip.
blight.
Oh, gosh,
my
yes.
goodness.
Bathroom breaks, built-in bathroom breaks. I mean, that's can't be
Exactly.
bad.
That's how you got to look at it. And I mean, and he had an amazing sound system. And so just the music rising and just like the rumble from the pressure under it, just it was such a great, it was probably one of the greatest non-theatrical movie experiences that I've ever had. And so that's how I was exposed to it.
I mean, that doesn't set the bar at all. So, John, what was your first impression? Was it on multiple formats in theater? Tell us the story.
Well, 89 was the summer of Batman.
Yeah.
And that's what it was all about. My first encounter with even knowing what the Abyss was, being truly aware of it, was seeing an ad that was supposed to hype it up on television.
Okay.
And it had like these two women that came out from like a test screening, and they were effusively, and I will never forget, because one of them said, "It's better than Batman." And at that moment, like this steel door slammed down that was like, "You all can go straight to hell, because that's not possible." And so I remembered that ad, but I mean, I couldn't drive, and we lived in the exurb, so I had to wait for video. When I finally saw it on video, I thought it was great. I was like, wow, this is really good, except that ending really is just completely fell flat with me. Like it was like, oh, that seemed to wrap up awful quick, but okay, sure. And that was always the complaint that my friends and I would always toss back and forth, was like, we thought the movie was great. It was a great James Cameron movie until the very end, when it just sort of like flamed out. Like they suddenly wanted to just wrap it up as fast as possible. And then I believe that this was one of those movies that Fox released when they started releasing this focus on letterbox series on video cassette.
Yes.
Where they were like, you have to learn what widescreen is. And Independence Day was one of them.
Oh, yeah.
And I believe The Abyss was one of them. And it was my first encounter, if I recall correctly, with the special edition. And this was back, you're younger. You don't have kids. You have a little more free money, and well, not free money, but you have a little bit more spending cash. And so it's like, you didn't rent these sorts of things. It was like, I will go out to the store and buy them, because why wouldn't I? And I bought it, and I was like, it instantly became one of my, like, it totally blew my mind how much more I enjoyed it with the extra footage in it. And yeah, that's the story of The Abyss. Like it quickly became, my other cinephile friends and I talking about, wasn't that so much better than the original? So yeah.
You talking about like the widescreen VHS made me remember when DVD first became a thing, like when it was really starting to push. I remember they were trying to make The Abyss have a comeback with DVD. And for some reason, I remember they kept pushing, it has an animated menu.
Oh, yeah.
Like they kept saying that. And so like whenever I saw that when I was younger, like from 1998 or 99 onward, whenever I saw animated menu as a feature, I was like, oh God, this is going to be so annoying. Like it would take 30 seconds to change menus.
Yeah. Yes, it would.
I remember they were inside like
They're inside Deep Core.
Deep Core, yeah, you're inside Deep Core, like in the open area, and like it would unspin, open the door, go through, adjust, maybe something would wiggle, and then the menu would pop up. You're like, oh my God, I just want to watch the friggin' film.
Yep.
Yeah, with me, it was probably catching it on VHS from like a Blockbuster. I mean, the cover it's a striking cover with the word in the abyss and some light in a deep trench. And I, for the effects, for the, the story and it's science fiction, but obviously very grounded in plausibility, 10, 20 years of tech, at the time. And I loved it. It was such a fun film. And then again, later, like you were saying, 20th Century Fox started to do these collector's editions, and I have a few of them. And number one on the list is The Abyss. It's their first one of the series. And yeah, it has that menu. Like if you want to watch the extended edition, you have to hit the button on the porthole and it takes you through to the other room, and then the menu pops up again because it can't display the text while it's moving the animation. You have to wait for it to complete, and then it pops up, and you're like, "Wait, I think." And I swear, there's been a few times where I want to say it takes you to that sub menu, and then but it doesn't put the cursor on the play button. It puts it on like the back to the regular version. And I remember a couple times accidentally, I've taken the 10 seconds to get to the sub menu, and then it swings me back to the original version. I'm like, no. And then I got to go back to the special edition again.
Now, Darren, your special edition, because you have a really fancy DVD package. Is that formatted for widescreen, or is it letterboxed?
No, it is, like you said, letterbox. It's a letterbox. It's a letterbox 4x3.
That freaking kills me. I know that everybody's saying like, "Hey, James Cameron, we're still waiting for an Abyss Blu-ray."
We're waiting on a lot of things, James,
and a True Lies Blu-ray. But honestly, I would just settle for a 16:9 version in standard definition, because right now, just standard definition version of Abyss doesn't exist, because if it's letterboxed, letterboxed 16:9, that's less than standard definition. So we have VHS quality of Abyss. That's all that exists on the market right now. How sad is that?
Well, what I did, because I ripped it into my iTunes so I could watch it, easier and not have to go through the menus of menus. And so I just in my conversion software, I just cropped it. So it is 16:9 on my computer screen, at least, just because it took the 4:3 image and I just cropped it down. So it was, the quality. Oh man, this is gonna look so good in HD, or whatever they're gonna have
10 years from now.
Whatever,
it's just so good.
Ultimate HD plus ×2 they come out with in the next couple of years. But yeah, so I think we all agree we like the extended edition or collector's edition or special edition, whatever we want to call it. And I think it from the behind the scenes, it sounds like it was just a casualty of average run times of the 80s, that if you ran something over 210, it was really, really risky. And so James Cameron, rather than plucking moments here and moments there, just cut a major subplot of a lot of Bud and Lindsay's relationship and a lot of the finale, which unfortunately, I think maybe it wasn't the right thing to cut. I don't know. But I mean, it seems like a lot of people's feelings on the theatrical cut is that weird left turn that third act took, that was restored. Definitely it's still a bit of a turn in the third act of the special edition, but at least it makes more sense in the overall story.
This is just one of those things where all those things needed time to breathe. And I know that's a sort of like a tired phrase and everything, but this
underwater
story,
breathe with
right. Womp womp. No, but seriously, like, there are so many characters here, and I think we spoke about this, when we were talking about Aliens. So all the characters were fully realized, and in this, the characters truly are fully realized. I believe in every single character, no matter how many times I've watched this. I do hit that point where I stop seeing Ed Harris and I'm seeing Bud, and I stop seeing actors. I start seeing the actual characters, even with Chris Elliott, kind of. But like, this is one of those things where I think probably the lesson he took from The Abyss was why he was able to argue / manipulate things so that he wasn't rushed with Titanic, because Titanic was delayed by 6 months because he basically drew a line in the sand and said, no, I'm not sacrificing anything here. Be it,
it's going to be on 2 VHSs when it comes out, because it's going to be that long.
That's right. But seriously, like, I think you can draw a direct line to, he maybe didn't, just have the clout at this point, despite having, I mean, Terminator was a cult hit. Aliens was a certified hit. The Abyss is, in a sense, like a proving ground for him. He doesn't quite have the clout yet. and because aliens could have been a fluke,
Right.
and so he's got to play ball still. And then I think that you see him have that freedom with Titanic, and as a result, The Abyss is one of those movies where it's really frustrating because even if you run across somebody who's seen it, the first question out of your mouth, which version have you seen?
That is true. That is true.
100% of the time.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the characters for a moment, because like you said, they're really well realized for us basically seeing like 2 days of their lives, basically 2-3 days tops. And I mean, it kind of makes me feel a little bit like Twister. Like everyone's got the nickname. You got, Jammer and One Night and Sunny and Hippie and Catfish and even the Marines like Monk and Coffee. I know there are actual names, but they sound like, made up nicknames. And it's so who's your favorite character? That's it, and it doesn't have to be the main. I mean, we all know Bud is great, and it can be Bud, but is there one that just you always love every time they're on screen?
Oh man, like I don't want to say Bud, even though I freaking love Bud.
Yeah, you don't have to say Bud. I mean, we all know Bud and Ed Harris like brings the heat in this performance. Like,
yeah,
that goes without saying.
Okay, well then we'll talk about Bud in a little bit.
Virgil, as his mother calls him.
Virgil, you wiener.
Okay, maybe that one line. You're talking about dialogue being a little cringeworthy. Maybe that one line.
I was watching this with my wife in preparation for this podcast, and she'd never seen it all the way through. She'd only seen bits and pieces on TV. And so when we sat down to watch it and that line came up, I hear wiener.
Okay, it found its audience then. So
it found its audience. I want to say, man, I want to cheat and say Catfish and One Night Together.
Okay.
Because I love their interactions.
Yeah.
I love the two of them together the most. And when Lindsay was dying or / dead, there was that moment where Catfish just puts his hand straight up on One Night's head. Just like not even in the back, not even like a loving touch, just like a straight on top of the head, just in full on grief mode. They're all just feeling it. And there was a lot of tactile interactions between all these side characters, and
they have that banter in the beginning. Like it's almost how we're introduced to the crew. They're hooking up something, and he's doing it, and she's in the sub, and you could tell like they've done this a million times.
Oh yeah, when she tries to like snip at him,
which would probably crush his hand if it actually paid purchase.
In the back of your mind, you're just like you're thinking like, oh, that's fun, and then you're like, ooh, no, that's dangerous. Like I'm sure OSHA would have something to say about that. But yeah, I think that the one thing I really, not to kind of sidetrack here, but all of the especially all the side characters did a really good job of making you feel like they knew each other and they've been in it together for a long time without being Captain exposition.
Right.
Like, oh man, I can't believe
it's very subtle.
We've been here for 3 years and 6 days.
Yeah.
Like, hey, remember how's that half Asian brother of yours that you got that I first met 2 years ago? Like none of that kind of stuff. So, this was really well plotted out. So I'd have to say One Night and Catfish.
One Night and Catfish. Yeah. Well, and I think part of that comes from they were in the trenches together making this movie. Like there's a lot of blurring of the lines between reality and the story when you're literally diving in the water with this person for hours at a time, day after day. Like you do have that you have to work together because the life support system isn't fiction. It actually has to, keep you alive underwater. And it definitely rubs off. I mean, just like you have military movies where they have boot camp before the filming and they kind of bond together. I think they all felt like they survived this movie more than they actually just made it together. Well, John, what is your favorite character?
Well, I mean, I really like Tristan's answer of Catfish and One Night Together. I think that's a good
pairing.
Good answer. Yeah. I do love Catfish. I think he's terrific.
Hey, got my fist up.
But I would say that over time, a character that I've come to love that is definitely in the conversation, as it were, and I'm going to dodge and I'm not going to pick a favorite sort of, because I mean, default, it's got to be Bud. Like I really think Ed Harris this was the first time I ever encountered Ed Harris. And every time I see Ed Harris, my first thought is Bud.
Yeah.
And
it's his indie role.
Well, yeah.
As in Indiana Jones, not as in independent film, just to be clear.
No, but like he's so believable and he's so sympathetic and he's so like you can tell that this is a guy that I mean,
I'm the tool pusher here on this rig, and there's me, and then there's God. Got it? If I feel bad, we're pulling the plug.
Yeah, but also the fact that he won't take his ring off, and I love that he reaches into the toilet to get the ring back, has the blue hand, but also who knows whether it was Cameron that told him to do it or whether Ed Harris came up with it, but just the way he plays the scene after the ring saves him.
Yeah, he's like,
right. It's such a beautifully played moment. It could be really corny, but instead it plays as really heartfelt, that he understands in that moment that what saved him was his refusal to give up on loving her. But
yeah.
A character that I've truly come to love through the years is Hippie. Because what I think is terrific about the character of Hippie is, for the time, they're calling him Hippie, but nowadays they would have a lot of different names for him, because the stuff that he's spewing, all of these conspiracy theory sorts of things, are all
everything is a conspiracy theory, John.
But that endears the character to me. I love that type of energy, and he just reminds me of a lot of people that I hung around, that I'm related to, and stuff like that. Where it's just like I just love that frenetic, constantly thinking, quasi-paranoid energy. It's a lot of fun because those people tend to be really just like the character in the movie. Like, always interesting.
Here's Merv.
Right.
I still don't understand that line.
But also how
I don't know if it's supposed to be like, here's Johnny from The Shining, but Merv being the tactical nuke name, because it's a Merv, like a MERV tactical nuke.
God, I'm an idiot.
Yeah. It took me a while too. When I first watched it, I was like, what's a Merv? Because they never call it a Merv. Well, he says it like once. He's like, Merv is a tactical nuke. Say 5 times Hiroshima.
Yeah.
But
oh jeez. Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. Thank you for explaining that to me.
But
that's what we're here for.
The thing is also how much he cares about his pet rat, right?
Yeah,
like
Beanie.
It's so endearing. When they demonstrate that
he's in the little bag and he's like drifting away, like his paws up, like no.
but it's really sweet. The character is so endearing that's probably why he's shot up the charts.
Well, he's the nerd. He's the geek. He's never in a wetsuit. He's always in a sub or piloting an ROV. He's the tech. He's not the oil worker, but he also has an important function on the rig. It's just a different skill set than the tool pushers in the mudroom.
Yeah.
I want to go back to Bud for a second.
We can always come back around for Bud.
Yes.
And I want to become the type of boss that Bud is. He's such a fantastic boss. He cares about his people. He looks after his people. And it's not just those
they'd go a mile for him. You can tell immediately that they would listen to him.
It's not just those big grandiose moments either, where it's just like, hey, my people come first. Like throughout, through all just little comments throughout, he's like, okay, everybody, stay safe, or like don't do anything dangerous, or let's go in, let's go out, like don't take any risks. You hear those kind of things all throughout the movie, where he's taking charge. He's not barking orders. He's actually trying to keep people together. And there's that one moment when the Marine grabs Lindsay.
Oh, the biggest mistake of his life.
Yeah. Like, and he hits the alarm, and he doesn't touch the Marine. He doesn't touch Lindsay. This guy's grabbing his wife, his soon to be ex-wife, but he's grabbing his wife, and he's just staring him down. And then he hits the alarm, and then people start coming. And once everybody's there, he's like, put her down. He's like,
Yeah.
that's the best decision you've made of your life. Like that was the smartest thing he could possibly do.
Right.
And
Mhm.
it wasn't the macho thing to do, but it was the smartest. And
Get numbers on your side and
Yeah.
make
Yep.
it public, because otherwise coffee's going to shoot you both, and because that's what's going to happen.
yeah, it
Right.
was. I've taken so much from Bud from this movie as a young person and into my adulthood of who I want to be like in like the workforce or in being a cool head or like shooting straight, that kind of thing.
Well, and it's a smart character being smart. I mean, not that characters have to have the right answer every time, but I mean, we can all spot a bad decision a mile away. And when a character makes it for no apparent reason, just because it was poorly written, it diminishes it a little bit. But like you said, the Bud's, his action in that scene, and at least to my memory, there's no big speech. There's no
Right.
rallying the troops. It's just little moments that build that
Yeah.
character and are way more impactful. What were you going to say, John?
Well, I was actually going to ask because I'm no historian on the film, but I know, Darren, that you know this, the backstory on it. It seems to me that this time watching it, Aliens comes before this. This almost feels like it sprang out of his research of watching the original Alien, because this crew, in a lot of ways, is
I get a lot of Nostromo vibes.
Yeah, but it's a less dysfunction. It's more of an idealized Nostromo, right?
Right.
Like you don't have the dysfunction that family did. This is the way that the Nostromo could have and should have worked. And you have an outside alien that they're curious about, that they can't control. And is there any acknowledgement along the way that might have been a wellspring for this crew?
I don't necessarily know if it came from Alien. I know that it was just another, script that Cameron wrote and kind of developed along the way. But and we'll get to the novelization a little later. But just to say, one of the only differences in the novelization versus the movie is the first 3 chapters take place before the movie, and each one, there's one on Bud, there's one on Lindsay, and there's one on Coffee. And as he wrote them, this is written by Orson Scott Card, and he was writing it during production, and they actually delayed the release of the book so that basically the movie was done by the time, or edited by the time he released it. So it is literally the movie, like line for line, scene for scene. It's not like any other novelization I've read. But what they did say is they took those first 3 chapters and gave them to the actors for prepping their characters. So in a way, this kind of circular came around and influenced. And Bud's chapter talks about his fear of the water, and his brother dies when he's young in the water, and it totally impacts his life. And Lindsay's story and Coffee's story, and I want to get to that more a little later. But I feel like, that's an awesome part of that character that came about from another artist, from Orson Scott Card.
Well, yeah, and that's what I find interesting about that too is there's sort of a 2001 parallel with that, because
Yes.
that novel was being written as the film was being done, and of course the novel and the movie there drastically diverge from each other in terms of like certain sequence of events and everything. But that is interesting, because I think it speaks as well to the fact that the novelization as an art form was still a very, very important part of the movie marketing and creation process. Because just to draw a slight parallel, recently I was doing a rewatch of the Rambo movies, and so I read the novelizations. Now, the first one's based on a book, and then they brought David Morrell back to write novelizations of the second and the third, and they drastically differ. Like, especially the third one, massively differ. But they help so much with the shading of the characters, and like it improves the film. So I know you said later, but like I'm very curious. Like, does reading the novel
okay, let's get into it.
improve the film for you?
Oh, definitely. Yes. And it's funny you were mentioning 2001 because in the forward at the end, one was written by Cameron and one was written by Orson. And he says, for good or ill, this novel is as close to a collaboration between filmmaker and novelist as any other since the collaboration between Kubrick and Clark in creating 2001: A Space Odyssey. I'm like, yeah, it,
Wow.
it's so here's the big differences in the novel. Is the NTIs. You get a lot more because we're never in the NTI's city. We're never seeing their thoughts or there's none of that in the film, but
Mhm.
he imbues backstory to them and where they come from and what's going on. And it all fits together. So the gist is the NTIs, they call themselves the builders, and the city, the Ark, was their spacecraft. They came from their world, and their plan is like they land and then they build other arcs and then they shoot off from this planet to other planets and they just continue on. But they're a linked mind society. So they're like all the different builders. It's not necessarily a collective consciousness, but more like no builders die. Like when they die, their mind is just part of the collective. And so they really don't understand humans because for humans, once a human dies, it's like that knowledge is lost, where they don't have that concept because for them it continues.
Cool.
But there's some cool scenes where they basically, like, as they manipulate water, they have the ability to create these like filaments of water that are like molecules wide, and they're able to use that to go into our minds to basically read our minds and perceive our memories and thoughts, because a lot of it is them trying to communicate. And so they try to communicate with Jammer, and that doesn't work out so well. And then so by the end they're able to communicate in the ending scene we get where they bring Bud into the city. But they actually talk about how they're the ones who saved Jammer. Like Jammer is basically in a coma and he would have died, but they fix his mind based off of their initial scan. And that's why when
Huh.
he wakes up in the coma, he's just like, hey, I was sleeping, and it was like there's no damage at all. They also mention like they modify all the people who were on Deep Core so that like they don't have trouble decompressing when they raise the Deep Core at the very end. And actually, they change them in such a way that they're able to descend and reascend, and they kind of become the ambassadors between their worlds. Just those people that were touched by the builders during this crisis. So, I mean, obviously, none of that is in the movie, but it's a fun. It's fun seeing inside the mind of the builders and what their motivations are. And none of it contradicts the movie, but it's just, it's like a supplement, which
Cool.
was really fun.
Yeah, that sounds really awesome. And like when you first told me, you're like, oh, it is the movie. My first reaction was like, well, then why do I need to read it?
Right.
Like if it's I could just read the script, like if and visualize it in my mind. But with that kind of backstory and with that kind of stuff, I definitely want to read it now. I do want to bring up one thing though, is that before you gave all that cool backstory about the NTIs and everything like that, there was one thing about the special edition I didn't really like, and it's just one thing. And it's a scene where Lindsay is talking with One Night, and the other people are there, but One Night asked Lindsay, where do you think they came from? Like they from below, up above, what's going on? And Lindsay says, well, I think they were, from up above and they landed here. That always bothered me because I really liked in the theatrical edition the idea that they've always been here, that they evolved on Earth just below. And so I just love the idea of humans evolving above the sea level, and then the builders or whoever you want, the NTIs evolving, NTIs evolving below sea level. I just love the idea of two sentient species existing on one planet, and that's always how I took it until I saw the special edition, where that scene was in there, and I was just like, oh. Like it's all headcanon. It's not a criticism of the movie. It's just how I took it.
No, I get where you're coming from. I don't agree, but like I get where you're coming from because it's a cool concept. Scene But that scene also bears such a structural resemblance to the special edition of Aliens, where they're postulating about what are the aliens, how does it work? And I think it was Hudson that's like, maybe there's a queen or something like that, like bugs. And then at the end, there's a queen like bugs. And it's like, it's one of those things where he just uses that sort of scene to be like, because we were talking about, there's no Captain Exposition moment, but that's his way.
How else do you convey that without somebody saying it on camera?
Yeah, that's his way of slipping in. He's telling you what they are, without trying not to be too obvious about it.
At the end, he's just like, "Hey, that person's right." I mean, that's all they got to say. Cause, in the novel, they also talk about how the NTIs, again, they're tendriling into our minds, not only to kind of hear our thoughts, but they add like senses of calm, which is kind of why Bud and Lindsay aren't freaking out when the pseudopod shows up. And when she's saying things like that, like, "Oh, I think they did this," they're reinforcing a feeling of I'm right. And that also kind of makes sense where a lot of times Lindsay in the beginning is like, "I don't know how I know, but I know." And so again, it's not like the movie doesn't work without those passages, explaining that. You don't need it explained, but it is a nice companion to the film. And adds a lot there.
Just as the casual viewer who hasn't read the novel, like when I first saw Lindsay say something like that, like, "I don't know how I know, I just know," I always kind of assumed that they had some sort of connection with her because she encountered them.
Right. They do have more of a connection with her than any of the others, because they, that's why they showed themselves to her with the Manta kind of, NTI ship. And you were right.
Well, it's funny you mentioned the Manta ship, because my wife has not seen it, and so she still hasn't seen all of it, but she watched as much as she could before she went to bed. And her reaction, I want to ask, because with the Manta ship, of course, Lindsay sees and she's awestruck, and she reaches out and she touches, and she's absolutely at peace and in love with this, this experience and everything. And my wife's comment at the time was, "Why would you touch it?" And like it sparked this whole thing of, "Well, wouldn't you want to?" And she says, "No, I'd want to get away from it as fast as I could." And I'm like, that right there is such an interesting sort of thing in and of itself that actually made, even though he's going through the bends and everything, like when Coffee freaks out, like I think it's very intelligent of Cameron to have you see a wide range of reactions to this different stuff. Lindsay is the type of person who's going to see that and be like, "Oh, wow, that's so cool. I want to be a part of it. I want to find out all about it. Blah, blah. I have a scientific mind." And Coffee's danger.
And they even have that line where Lindsay says, Coffee sees what he wants to see, and he sees fear and Russians and danger. You have to look at with better eyes than that. And I don't think knowing that the NTIs are influencing her behavior or emotion to be calm, detracts from that. But that's a good point. I mean, if it's jellyfish-ish, that's not necessarily something you want to touch, but it is very pretty. So, that helps.
I want to talk about the special effects of the Manta, and I'd love to talk about the special effects of the movie. With the Manta, one thing that I've always really, really loved about it is that it's not just a jellyfish. It's not just a pink blob.
Right.
Like, it has mechanism. You can see
it's got spinny things and lights, which means it's got to be sci-fi.
It's
a staple.
You can see how it moves. You can see how it intakes water and expels it in order to move, like a caterpillar drive.
Yeah, it has a wake. It has it has turbines in it or something like that.
And that's pure Cameron right there. And every time I see that now, because just recently he made a comment bashing superhero films, which I love it when filmmakers bash superhero films. I think it's hilarious, because like when you look at the Abyss and you look at Avatar, like he focuses really hard on how organic organisms work,
right,
and how they do what they do.
Yeah, the
And
Na'vi and their connection to the tree and the, all of
Right.
that, all the biological, and then you have the humans with all the technological.
right. And one thing that he was talking about a few months ago was like he can't stand watching superhero films because he's like, how are they flying? Like how like they're flying just because they can fly. That's what it is. And he like
He's not wrong.
yeah, and it's just so funny because in Avatar 2, and with the Abyss and everything like that, they spent so much time figuring out how these organic machines actually move underwater and how they do what they do. And I'm not propping one up over the other. Like I'm not saying, like I'm not criticizing superhero films, because sometimes you just got to go, yeah, they can fly because of magic. Sometimes you just have to do that. But I do appreciate the thought that goes into the special, like, of building the creature building.
Yeah.
And also world building of how things work. I really do appreciate that about
And
Kramer.
it was probably easy. I mean, make it totally transparent with no apparent metal and in underwater and light up. I mean, that was how easy could that be to make? I mean,
Yeah.
it's not a tall order at all.
John, what did you like about that? Did you have like a favorite special effect, or what did you think about the special effects overall?
Well, I think there are definitely things that are artifacts of the time. I do think that he benefits as well from the fact that we accept and understand how those thick glass and underwater can distort an image. So the projection of people inside the submersibles,
Right.
we're a bit forgiving of how that can flatten out a little bit. It's like, okay, fine.
Well, we already talked about rear projection and James Cameron. He loves that trick and he uses it to his full advantage.
Yeah. But so I think there are a couple of things that don't, nowadays it's like, that's just what they could do back then, sort of thing. And I'm going to avoid talking about, the encounter with the water that got all of the press, that won them, all the accolades and everything. And I'm actually going to go ahead and just say, and I know this is going to sound dumb. It's going to sound absolutely idiotic, right? But one of the effects I think that is terrific, that plays really, really well, is the crane falling from the surface. And the way that the cable spools as it's falling,
the umbilical,
is right. Like the physics of it are perfectly correct. And I love that moment because I'm sitting there and it actually takes me out of it, because I go, wow, I know how hard it was to get that right. Like it's one of those things where it's like, I'm so in awe of the fact that they got all of that correct. And it's something that once like computers came into play, they had to relearn how to do all that stuff again. And this is like a pinnacle moment of that photography trickery that they could do to make things seem to have the real weight and danger of several tons of steel falling through water, and how it would have really looked, and have me actually believe what's happening on screen. I know it's a weird one to choose, but
I think that's a great scene. The crane scene is a wonderful scene.
And we never talk about how the crane operator died. Like we never.
Well, I mean, we know he died,
Yeah.
But this movie, I mean, special effects. When we talked a little bit about the NTIs and their water bending and abilities, but yeah, I mean, I love the deep core model. I mean, it's just beautiful and it's huge and it's clunky and it looks real, and he's pulling out all the stops. He's doing models in water. He's doing dry for wet in a smoke environment. He's doing, all sorts of different scales and, shooting in the largest water tank ever, this, decommissioned nuclear power plant reactor containment vessel. And it's like, of course he is, because he's James Cameron. I would expect nothing less. But yeah, I love the deep core model.
The miniatures in this movie
fun.
Were fantastic.
Oh,
like I really feel like he, you can. I think that's one area you can see huge growth from all the people who worked on him, working on his films, and all the other people that he works with continually on his films, going from Terminator to Aliens to The Abyss. Like especially going from Aliens to Abyss, you see a huge jump forward when it comes to miniatures, because there's so many times when I was like, oh yeah, that's a miniature, that's a oh, wait, no, wait, maybe I was wrong. Like it's just
Right.
there's so many times that it happens, and I really miss you would never see that today. You would
No.
never
It'd all be
see
CG,
that.
and
Yeah.
it would all be underwater CG and Aquaman effects or whatever. But well, yeah, and I mean, okay, what was it? I think the Montana, the nuclear submarine, when it crashes, I think it was like a 70-foot long model. Like it was, I can't even fathom the sound stage to build this thing on for this like one shot of it crashing into the trench wall. And then you have like the climatic battle of the subs, which are in, I think they were like quarter scale, still relatively small, but those always felt full size to me. That entire battle sequence when they're zipping around the rocks and they crashing into each other and Coffee ends up over the edge of the cliff. And I mean that, and it's intercut and it's the editing is perfect on it. And I never felt like, oh, well, that's not the full size sub. Like I've seen Flatbed move around enough to think that's it. How did you do that without risking your actors? It's like, oh, there's the movie magic. But I mean, it won the Oscar for best, special effects that year, obviously, and as it well should have. But yeah, the submarines, and again, it's all difficult. It's like, it's not only submarines, it's submarines in water, which you have to still control and make look real. And but it all comes together. And I mean, even just the wave, like that's an incredible shot to do. And like John said, the pseudopod, the water tentacle, being, we're a couple years past Jurassic Park. No, we're not even to Jurassic Park at this point, but this would lead to Terminator 2, like technology. And, it would go from liquid water to liquid metal.
Yeah, no, I actually said that to my wife while she was watching it with me, and and we saw that moment. I said, "This is it. This is the moment that it happened." And she's like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "This is the breakthrough where it all changed. Where once they crossed this threshold, they knew what they could do, and they went for it from this point forward.
Yeah.
And this is really that pivot point. I know that people like to point at was it Young Sherlock Holmes or whatever, and the stained glass thing coming to life and everything. But like this is the moment where people watch this effect and it was like, how are you doing this?
Yeah,
this looks
and
real.
5 years later, you have dinosaurs. I mean, it was you're absolutely right. It broke that barrier and was really like, what is possible? And then everybody started just dumping money into that technology.
Yeah.
It's interesting because Cameron seems to always be on that cusp and on that forefront, because I know that this wasn't a phrase back then, but I think it's applicable now that, we were living in a post-Abyss world in terms of special effects. And once Avatar came out, people started saying, well, we're now in a post-Avatar world where we can do X, Y, Z. And Cameron is that guy who pushes it to the limit, pushes technology to the limit on what it can do for filmmaking and for his stories, and then everybody else benefits.
Although he does have something of a reputation of
pushing a little hard.
Well, taking a little bit of the credit that he should maybe be doling out to others from time to time. But that actually goes into something where I've never gotten a straight answer. And I mean, I imagine, Darren, you probably are most likely person that I've ever.
I'm not pretending to be the oracle, but we'll see what we can get.
But I remember, and it was the first time I really heard anything about it, when Cameron won Best Picture for Titanic. There was some magazine that because they used to print these things instead of just putting them on screen, that had some interview with Ed Harris, and it indirectly addressed the fact that Ed Harris doesn't like James Cameron very much, and that it apparently goes all the way back to The Abyss. That like Cameron and Harris didn't get along, and Harris.
Oh, I heard a rumor that Harris hit him or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah. This could
Really?
be
No, I
this
I
could be
hadn't heard.
completely made up, but I heard that
I
rumor.
hadn't heard that he hit him, but I mean, only thing I have to go off of is the behind the scenes documentary, and you can tell they kind of edited Ed's discussion on Cameron for like the best bits, and you could tell like he's basically saying like, you know, all the stuff we always say about Cameron of like, well, he's a very intense man, and it's, you know, it's always very demanding, and I think Ed focused more on the things he personally pushed through to accomplish in that movie that were extremely difficult. But yeah, I didn't get the sense that like they would never work together again, but I also didn't get the sense that they were like buddies by the end. I think it definitely was that kind of a situation. So, but I don't know any more than that. But who knows what hindsight and 97 through versus 89 Ed Harris,
Right.
what they would have to say.
Well, I also think it's a shame too, because this is such an incredible film and it's such a great cast that the one actor who I think is really, and this is going to sound weird because of course we've been talking about Coffee, but like Michael Biehn,
Oh yeah.
it remains one of those actors that delivers a performance like this and people still don't know his name, and it drives me up a wall because it's like you
Three
see
for
this,
three. It's his third
Yeah.
Cameron movie in a row.
yeah,
And
and he's
yeah.
great in all three of them, and it just it annoys me that the guy never became that common household actor name, like he deserved
he
it so
should've.
bad. Yeah,
Well, in the novelization, again, they have one chapter on Coffee, and it honestly, it made him a much more sympathetic character as far as, you know, he's not necessarily the villain. He's suffering from pressure psychosis, and he's, you know, in this terrible situation, but that's more of what makes him break than being a, you know, AJ squared away jarhead, like they said. Like he's not like that. Like they describe him, you know, that he was one of those people that just kind of naturally fit into the Marine, into the, you know, into the SEALs, and his men were like, we'll follow you, we'll die for you, like you always make the right choice. And in the novel, you're seeing inside of his mind as he's having these moments, like when he shuts down Brigman and he's like, no, you got to listen to me and go do this. And inside he's going like, wait, that's not the right call. Why did I do that? Like these people are, so he's realizing his mistakes, but he almost can't help himself because of the situation and the psychosis. But it talks about him growing up and just kind of going into that program mode of, you know, orders and directives. But yeah, again, made it much more sympathetic of, and I always loved the character of Coffee, but it was just added to it. Cause again, he's the bad guy, but not really. I mean, he's the antagonist force, but I don't ever feel, he always seems like he's doing what he feels is right. And but that's usually not the right choice. He's making a lot of bad calls, but he's not the bad guy.
I think antagonist is a neutral enough term where I feel like antagonist has been abused too much.
Right. He's not the villain.
Right. Like antagonist doesn't always mean villain. It's, you know, it's the foil to the protagonist or to the
We're not
story.
talking about Tenet. Okay, dude, Ken.
Yeah, so it's I think I think Michael Biehn plays a perfect antagonist as Coffee for this film. And yeah, like I think it's like where the people around him don't understand what's going. Well, they do, but at the same time, like at the end, like when he dies and like when Flatbed starts to break loose and he puts his hand up against the glass and they do the same.
Yep.
It really spoke a lot in that moment.
Yeah.
Where they all three of them almost simultaneously said, I'm really sorry this happened.
Yeah. And he kind of snaps out of it for a moment, like at the very, very end. And he kind of like, you can kind of see it on his face where he's kind of realizing like, oh my gosh, what's going on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're sorry. They don't want him to die. They just don't want him to blow up the NTIs. I mean, and yeah, no, a great, and I think I also like how we have like Ensign Monk, who's kind of the way more sympathetic SEAL, the one we're supposed to kind of identify with, and you know he's kind of a lot more rational, and he's, you know, makes the right choices when Coffee doesn't, but he's not the leader, so it doesn't really go down that way.
Yeah. I and it's I okay. I do want to ask, Tristan, you hit on one thing that you're not nuts about in the special edition. Darren, is there anything in the special edition that you think could be cut? That you think, like, is there, like, with Aliens, we talked about there's some sort of perfect edit between the special edition and the theatrical. Is there 5 minutes here or there, or a scene that you think could be excised from this film and it would not be any worse for it?
Gosh, it's so hard because again, it's so interwoven. I mean, we all say it's like the third act, but it really is much more than that. And all these little scenes, and they all add to the story in ways, with the ring and with, just these little interpersonal moments that add to the characters. Because it is a big cast. There is a lot of people to, interact with. Um, I, I don't know. Again, I'm watching it again. It's really hard for me to extract what is special edition versus what is non-special edition, because 9 times out of 10 I watch the special edition because why not? It's the version I prefer and have access to. But yeah, no, I can't. I can maybe timing again in that third act a little bit, like you're seeing, the wave, and you have that news reporter that's like freaking out, and you have like there's just a lot of dominoes fall in the very last moment.
Did we need the news reporter? I felt like there was a
he's staying. He wanted you to know that. It's really important. Yeah.
There was it felt like a weird focus on the news reporter where we're like, oh, he's
going
to
be
the
Jaws news reporter. It's like the walking along Amity Beach. It's like, who are you? We've never met.
Yeah, but it's like he's the story, the camera and the story focus on him like he's going to be important, and he's not. Like, we could have just done crowd shots and it would have been fine, right? Am I wrong in that?
I think we could have done crowd shots, or maybe show the members of the Benthic Explorer watching the wave go out from them or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're not on land, but we know them. We've spent at least some time with them. And I would be much more interested in their reaction. I mean, they get the reaction of the Ark coming up beneath them, which is cool too. But yeah, that maybe if there was one thing that is like Tristan said, we don't have an invested person in the wave scene because we haven't spent any time on the mainland in this entire movie. So we don't know any of these people. We just know the landmarks.
John, do you have something that you would want to maybe trim down in the special edition?
I can honestly say I would probably struggle to think of a scene, because watching the special edition for this, it was my first time having seen it in a while. And I'll cop to it. When I'm watching a movie I've seen before at home, sure, just like any other human being on the planet who has access to a cell phone, I glance, it's like, oh, my phone went off. Let me go take a look. I know I'm a monster. I deserve to be in prison. But
maybe just flogged, not prison, but okay.
Well, hey, don't make promises you can't carry through on. But like, I think that this held my attention the entire time. I never once broke attention with the film. And to me, like, I could probably sit there with a fine-tooth comb and be like, yeah, I could pull that out. I could do without, like I could probably like trim here or there 30 seconds or something like that. But the simple fact that at no point did I get up, did I pause it, did I get fidgety, anything at all, is a testament to the fact that I would have a hell of a time finding anything to cut out of it.
Well, see, because I had one scene that I kind of was purposely spacing a little bit, and that's just because it's a really intense scene, and that's the drowning scene. Just the raw despair and emotion that we get from the drowning and the revival scene, especially having a wife, especially having people that are close to me, it hits. It's an amazingly acted scene, and it's hard to not transfer emotion with that. And I have to kind of back off involved in depthness of watching, just at least for those two scenes. I mean, not that they're not good scenes, but they're almost, too good in that, I feel that emotional impact, which I mean, obviously is the point, but
I think that the revival, that trying to revive her scene, is one of the most impactful moments I've ever watched in film. From the moment I saw it to today, like, it's so real. And Tristan, you mentioned when catfish touches One Knight's head, like, there's so much. And I think even that scene speaks to the bond and the fact of how much they love Bud as their leader.
yeah, they
Right.
feel his pain.
Right. When Lindsay shows up, he's standoffish with her. He doesn't like her, and everybody's like,
Probably
"Oh,
shouldn't
hi,
have
it's you."
married her then,
Right. And everybody's like, "Blah, blah, blah." But as soon as Bud is feeling pain, they're all feeling pain.
Yeah, the empathy is strong in that scene. Yeah.
And it's, it's all, and it's yeah, man. Like, wow, that is a heck of a scene. Sorry. Yeah.
No, I mean,
so,
that's got to be one of the best. I don't want to be hyperbolic here, but it is truly one of the most heart-wrenching scenes and thrilling scenes that kind of drags you in. I don't want to say best of all time, but
Right.
it is up there on accomplishing what it tries to accomplish. And as a side note, South Park parodied this scene.
Oh, of course they did.
And when I first,
surprisingly, I've not come across that in my research of this film, but okay.
Don't ever watch it, because like when I first saw it, I laughed my ass off because I knew exactly what they were parodying.
Right.
But then when I watched the film again, I was like, God dang it.
Stupid South Park.
Like, it's so many times, like with the Family Guy Star Wars specials. Like Family Guy has taken over so many moments in my brain from Star Wars, where I'm just like, I can't not think of the parody now when I watch the real thing. So yeah, don't ever watch it. Don't ever look it up out of curiosity.
That's fine.
Just
I
let
can
it
do
go.
that. I got plenty of other content. Well, you're speaking on that moment, John, and you can have another one in the queue. But Tristan, one thing I wanted to ask you guys is just one of your best moments or favorite moments in the film. Doesn't have to be the biggest moment, doesn't have to be the climax, but I feel there's many of those in this, and I definitely have one, but I was curious if you had a best moment.
Well, it's hard not to say the reviving scene. It's hard not to say that. So like, I'd say that's definitely the best scene of the movie and my favorite, but since that's probably is a most common one, I'll try to give you my second.
It's the Bud of the answer for the characters. Like you don't even have to say it. So it's like beyond the obvious choice.
Yeah.
Man, I like it when you pose this question to us, like have this ready for when we record tonight. I was like,
I tried to help you guys out.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to think. And I did. And I'm in front of the mic and I'm still talking and I'm probably not going to stop, but yet I'm giving John more time to think and he can interject at any moment.
Oh, wait,
but
I'll give you mine. One of my favorite moments is, I got chills watching this moment again. And it's one of my favorite moments of the film is when they're singing, Willin', and they're dragging the deep core to the new location. And One Night's, in flatbed, and she just starts singing along with her radio, and the others start to take over the chorus line. And you're just like, man, like these are just their people and they're doing their jobs and they're living their lives. And I love that scene. It's just the music is so on point, and they're talking about, driving rigs and being workers, and it is perfect. I love that scene. I think that scene encapsulates what we're supposed to feel for these characters and their relationship. And I love that scene. So that is one of my favorite moments. But okay, is that enough time, Tristan?
I think so. Yes.
What about you? Yeah.
Thank you for giving me that moment to think a little bit longer, because if it wasn't for the reviving scene, I'd have to say, the catastrophe. Like when the crane fell and then everything started flooding and everything that followed after that.
That sequence
was, oh my gosh, was nail biting It was perfectly executed. I mean, it was perfect editing, perfect acting, just really great sequence of events, fine directing. Yeah, I think that whole culmination of domino effect and ending with Bud being saved by his wedding ring is thrilling filmmaking. Love it.
Or not, or even past then, because then you have oh, that's right, because before that is the crane. I love that. It's not a psych out, but it's like that moment of pause where the crane falls and we're super happy it missed us,
Yeah.
and then we see it starting to fall over the cliff and we're like, oh crap, this, and it's just like it's not over,
And you're
and
with
then,
them as an audience member. You are with
you are.
the characters in that moment where you're like, oh, whew, we can breathe now. No, we
Right.
can't.
I mean, you even got the sonar pings as it's coming down. It's getting louder and louder. And, John's beautiful umbilical spaghetti coming down to rest in amazing, realistic fashion. But yeah, no, I love that whole sequence. And just and then you have the actors, like the dump tanks are throwing water at them, and you see characters die and get trapped behind water. And then at the end, they're all just, there's that one shot of deep core, and it's all quiet again for a moment, and they're all just like battered and just like, oh my gosh, we're so much worse than we were 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, I think you guys took two great scenes there, and we've already taken the revival scene off the table. I feel obligated to try to find something different. So, I will say a scene that always stuck with me, that always unnerved me. I'll give you two tiny moments instead of, like big moments like that. One is when Jammer freaks out because he sees the crabs crawling across the.
That sticks with you.
Cannot, like, in that moment, I'm like, oh my God. Like,
I feel you, Jammer.
Yeah. I would have been exactly like him. I'd be like, I cannot go any farther than this.
Yeah. When I close my eyes, that's what I see. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't. But then the scene where they're sitting there and they're talking to Coffee, and it goes to underneath the table, and he's sitting there just scoring his arm with the knife. And it's like, that is just as unnerving as the crabs, because it's how bad it is with this guy, and it's building, and you're like, you still want to believe, oh, maybe Coffee can turn it. Nope. He's not
gone.
Coming back. He's done.
And
that is finished.
I know that's an easy effect, but it still looked so real. Like they did such a good job with that.
Yes.
And then later you see the other Marines see that on his arm, and they don't say anything, but they know too, like, our leader just cut himself. Like, that is not good.
Yeah.
Jammer is, we were talking about favorite characters. I love Jammer. I mean, he doesn't have a huge role, but every scene he's in, I just smile, because he's just, who put this wall here? And like, he's just.
I've totally used that before. I have used that line.
Well, it's in this. There's so many lines. There's a lot of great lines in this, movie. Like 2.5 miles. Here's a bottomless pit, baby. 2.5 miles straight down. And like I've said before, a quotable movie is often a good movie. There's a lot of great things to take away from this. But yeah, the Coffee moments, the moments where like his hand's shaking a bit and he just does that, and you get that little snap of his hand pulling into a fist again, and you're just like, yeah, you're just watching his descent into madness and eventually descent into the abyss. But
what I also think is very interesting is the fact that this film has a different director of photography, but I still look at it and say that's a James Cameron movie.
Right.
And it's like that, I think, is really the mark of a director who's like, I can look at a Christopher Nolan movie and Wally Pfister leaves. And it's like, oh, what does that mean? Nope. Still looks the same. Okay. Yeah. And it's like, it really, I think, it is one of those marks of, Cameron still imbues that very specific visual sense. You can tell that this is not somebody who's having his director of photography tell him what the shots are going to look like, that he's saying, no, you're going to make it look like this because this is what I like it to look like. And maybe that speaks to the difficult to work with angle, or maybe that just speaks to when people agree to work with James Cameron, they know this is the type of director he is. And I know I know what lighting rigs to bring, and I know how much smoke machine to bring, and how to diffuse the light so that when somebody's walking past something, it's shining behind them in a certain way.
Right.
That sort of thing. So, but in terms of visuals, do you think that this? I mean, I know for me, yes, but do you
Does
see
it
a
feel
clear?
like a Cameron film?
But do you see a clear refinement, like a growth from Terminator to Aliens to this? Do you see?
Oh yeah,
an
definitely.
Yeah,
I think
okay.
part of that is just the nature of the story, and I mean not just the inside the ship parts, but I mean they pushed the boundaries of technology for all of the underwater photography, because a lot of that was new. I mean, they invented a monitor for him so he could watch underwater and be underwater while they're doing that. They invented the kind of sky crane, basically like a water jet powered crane to do those kinds of shots underwater, because that didn't exist, and lighting and all this crazy stuff, because it has to be self-lit because you're at the bottom of the ocean. And it like I couldn't see him making this before Aliens. Like, it's definitely a progression. Like, it's definitely, he took what he, or it would all be rear projection maybe if it was before Aliens, but
probably.
And them just walking like they're on the moon, like just
real slow. But no, yeah, I think he's super controlling of the frame. You know exactly where to look. There's not a wasted shot or moment. And again, he does it with an ensemble cast, with a large group of people, and yet you can almost remember every single one of their names. Which, I mean, the nicknames help, but no one gets lost in the void. So yeah, visually, I do think it's definitely a progression. We'll see if Tristan agrees.
Oh, well, I do, because you heard me talk about like the miniatures and how that excels and everything like that. So definite progression. But I am aching to know, and I think I already do, what everyone's going to be rating this film.
All right, that's right. Let's bring off the ratings. I enjoyed going through the characters and the story and the effects, and there's so much to unpack in this movie. But so I'll trepidatiously go first. I mean, last time I went first, it was a little different, but can I give a 6? Is that even allowed? No. It's a total 5. It's such an amazing film. Even if you're just watching the theatrical, it's still an amazing film.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And whether it's on eventual Blu-ray or Laserdisc or VHS or however you come across it, it's really fun. You'll fall in love with the characters. You'll fall in love with the effects and the grandeur and the story. And if you love movies and making movies, you'll love this film. It's definitely, it doesn't have to be your favorite, but it's gonna knock you out. So I'm gonna give it 5. Cab 5 is gonna be my fictional was just waiting in the wings to come save them, but they didn't call for it. So 5 cabs. Tristan, what is your rating for The Abyss?
I absolutely love this film, and when I was talking with my wife about what Houselights was going to be doing next, and saying it was going to be House of Cameron, and we started talking about Cameron's films and his filmography, and she's like, well, which one is your favorite? And I was like, well, not having watched all of them in a long time, I'd have to say The Abyss. And she was really surprised by that. She was really surprised. She's like, even more than Aliens and Avatar and Terminator 2 and everything like that. I'm like, yeah, as of right now, like, yeah, The Abyss is just a solid motion picture. Solid directing, acting, special effects, editing, music. It's just great across the board. And honestly, there's not a single thing that I would change. I mean, there's certain things that I would have done differently if I was the filmmaker, but I'm not Jimmy C. Like, I'm not who the hell am I? But from an entertainment perspective, not a single thing I would change. And even though there was one thing that I talked about that I didn't like about the special edition, but that's just because of my own preconceived notions. That's no fault to the film. So 5 stars, or I should say 5 stripes on Coffee's arm. That's that.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Brutal.
This is fun. It's more interesting. I'm like, what is the star about? That's what I want to know. Oh, good. I'm glad, because when you gave some 4.5s, I'm like, man, what's it going to take to to do a 5-star Tristan film. It's like,
This is
are you
what it
not
takes.
entertained? But, all right, John, what's your rating on this cinematic masterpiece? No pressure.
5 crabs crawling across a corpse at the bottom of the ocean.
Man, did you have the 5 crabs picked out before I gave
No,
the 5
as soon
stripes?
as soon as you said 5 stripes, I said, okay, we're playing the one-upman game here. That is what we're doing. No, I'm always floored by this film. This is one of those ones, I won't lie. This is one of those ones where I'll go a while without watching it. And then you start to question. You're like, is it really a 5?
Yeah.
Or was I a little too
Yeah.
enthusiastic last time? And then you rewatch and you're like, no. And to your point, Darren, I'm like, why doesn't the scale go to 6? Why isn't that a thing? Shouldn't we have like an emergency lever we can pull? No, I think that
If all 3 of us give it a 5, it officially becomes a 6. That's how it works. That's
it
the
works
formula.
for me. It works for me.
We're all in consensus.
I will go so far as to agree with the two. I think this may be the best thing Cameron has ever done. I continually, along with everybody else, I always think the guy can't top himself. And then he still entertains you no matter what. But I think that when eventually the history is written of his career, when he finally does shuffle off this mortal coil, people will look back at The Abyss and they will say, yeah, that's the one. That is the one where absolutely everything fired exactly the way it should have, and came together perfectly. And in the meantime, it's going to basically just be the hipster question of, but which version did you see? So there you go.
Well, and who else could have made this movie in the late 80s? Like, no one else would even tried or even approached it. Like, it took someone like Cameron who was going to push the technology and push the art form. And did it necessarily succeed in leaps and bounds at the box office? No, not as much as Aliens or some other pieces, but it's a powerful piece of his filmography and our favorite Cameron so far. So, and he does grow in scale and grandeur. I mean, like, you talk about like Titanic and Avatar.
Yeah.
You have to kind of wave your hands when you say those names, but that doesn't mean The Abyss wasn't that macrocosm of just amazing filmmaking. And we can all see that.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. Gotta say that. All right. Well, John, if someone wanted to talk to you and find out about your crab documentary, where would they find you on this network or abroad?
Well, Deep Sea Crabs and Me, my autobiography will be released sometime in the next 20 or 30 years. But you can, in the meantime, find me on your social network of choice at Kessel Junkie. And I encourage you to connect with me over on Letterboxd. That's where I have the most fun. Watching not just The Abyss, but gems like Original Gangstas and films like that. So look for Kessel Junkie. And you can find me here on the Nerd Party Network, also co-hosting a show called Aggressive Negotiations, which is a Star Wars podcast of a slightly different flavor. But Tristan, where can people find you?
Oh, well, you can find me on Twitter and Letterboxd at The Insane Robin. Have a lot of fun in both places. You can also find me on the network at thenerdparty.com, where, I have a few archive shows. One show that I'm particularly proud of is one called Nerd Nuptial, which is a show that I hosted with my wife. And it's about our view on nerd culture and pop culture, and also some of our own personal stories and baby stories. So check it out. It was a lot of fun. And Darren, where can we find you?
On the network, you can find me on City Alpha 3, our Star Trek podcast, and also Goodnight Moon, a podcast I did for a little bit with my daughter. And maybe we'll bring that back every once in a while as she enjoys chatting about her favorite things. We're now into Pokemon, so that should be interesting. But they can also find me on my website, Dr. Sci-Fi, or other places under Dr. Sci-Fi, DRSCIFI. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us in The Abyss. Next week, we'll be surfacing back on land, and we'll be back with Terminator 2.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.